It's Hal here on the Sheff United Way. Michael Cooper. This has got me excited. This is my excited face. This could be, potentially, Sheffield United's long-term goalkeeper solution. It has been a long time, I've felt, since we've had that number one. We think back over the years, certainly when I was growing up, I had Simon Tracy that I absolutely idolised. Then Alan Kelly, and I remember at the time thinking, hang on, do we need this guy? Yes, we did. What a goalkeeper Alan Kelly proved to be. I'm not for 1 second comparing Michael Cooper with any of these. Paddy Kenny as well. We've had so many. And then we went through that period of time where we had goalkeepers either on loan or maybe slightly shorter term solutions. And I feel like this is what we've needed to do. We've needed to do it for a very, very long time. And finally, we've got our man. I mentioned months ago that this was my number one target for the Blades, Michael Cooper from Plymouth Argyle. So to tell us a little bit about him, you don't want to listen to me witter on because I haven't seen that much of him, but Nick, the Argyle analyst, has. Nick, welcome to the Sheff United Way. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm probably better than you because you are losing, I would imagine, a very, very good keeper. Tell me about Michael Cooper. When I say the name, what do you think of?
I mean, the question for, I think, most Argyle fans is whether he's our best ever goalkeeper or our second best ever goalkeeper. And I think there's a bit of nostalgia going around whether not one of the Roman Lario, for example, would have been one of our best. But for me, it's undisputed. Based on everything I know of Michael Cooper, I think, in my opinion, is the best keeper we've ever had.
Wow.
Excellent goalkeeper. I think the big question for a lot of Sheffield United fans is going to be around experience, because the vast majority of all his appearances have come in League One during our period there from 2020 to 2023. That was the vast majority of experience. He was injured for most of last season. I saw a report erroneously state that he lost his place to Conor Hazard last season. That's not true. He was injured at the start of the season. He picked up a second injury midway through the season, but when he was fit, he was first choice. Honestly,
Right.
Excellent keeper, and it's very, very sad for all of. I mean, I'm sure you're more your fans are more active on social media have seen the. I don't want to say meltdown, but it's those kinds of levels of negativity, both sad and a bit of anger as well at the news.
Yeah, the fees being spouted about, maybe not the fee that you would hope for, of course, last year of his contract. Why do you think Michael Cooper hasn't wanted to sign a new deal and stay at Argyle?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of speculating about stuff like that because there's loads of little things that go on. I would imagine the main one is ambition. Let's be frank, Argyle are very, very likely to be competing at the bottom of the league again. Sheffield United are very likely to be in not just competing at the top, but are in the promotion picture. We've seen for the past few years the three relegated sides very likely to go up. I think the most obvious reason is going to be that he's ready for a new challenge. That he's worked damn hard here. He's become a brilliant player. He's ready to sort of take that step on, and I think he's just, being a bit realistic that maybe he gave Argyle a chance and he's not as happy with the summer and January recruitment. Maybe he's not as happy with the Ian Foster hire. I mean, there are some rumours going around that the squad clashed a bit with Foster. Maybe that soured things a bit. But I mean, really, there's a lot of different pieces of speculation. The most obvious thing is, sadly, that realistically, Sheffield United is going to be a place where he can further his career. I think that's probably the most likely reason. And of course, I imagine there's a nice big wage increase. Not that we didn't offer him apparently a record contract for Argyle, but I mean, that's still going to be trumped, you would imagine, at Sheffield United.
Yeah, possibly. Blades fans can relate to losing players we love, by the way. This time last season, I was trying to temper a lot of anger around 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗏, who was offered the best contract in Sheffield United's history. And he chose Marseille. Again, for ambition reasons, you have to look at it like that. And these are footballers. It's a short career. We've just mentioned injuries. Footballers can get injured. And Michael Cooper's had not one, but two serious injuries. And it might have been during that time. Sorry, say that again, Nick.
Quite possibly what was on his mind.
Exactly.
You might be aware that a third injury, and it closed the door a little bit to that big transfer. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly where I was going to go with that. Quite right. Spot on. Now, he's 6'2". Okay, so he's not the tallest goalkeeper on the planet. Have you seen anything to suggest that 6'2" is an issue, or is it a case of he's got great jumping reach?
Absolutely not. His handling and his judgment of crosses, it's not perfect, but no keeper is. You generally, in my in my experience, you have those keepers who are more like to stay on their line versus those who are a bit more aggressive and come for things. Cooper, I don't know necessarily why, if it's to try and counteract his height or if it's just what he thinks is the best thing to do. He is more on the aggressive line. He'll miss a couple. I'm sure there might have been one last season. There's definitely one season before, but I can't really think of many examples in the recent past, the last 2 seasons, really season and a half in, given the injuries, where we've suffered from that. There have been a couple of chances missed, but by and large, he's got very good judgment when it comes to whether or not to come or not. I think Leicester fans will be aware of that you might have watched our televised 1-0 win against Leicester at the back end of last season. Lots of crosses coming in. I think he got pretty much every single one of them right, whether to come, whether to go. His handling's so impressive. I think Connor Hazard, the backup, is more conservative. He's less like to come off his line. I don't really like that. And he's tailored that a little bit to get better at it. But he still punches it quite a lot, whereas Cooper, very often out, 2 hands, got it.
Good.
More catching than there is punching. You asked me before we started what I think is, or you said that you might ask what his weaknesses are. I'm not really sure. Now, maybe that'll change with a bit more scrutiny under a different style of player. Maybe, disruption of, a different setup, a different manager, something in the background. At Argyle, part of the reason we love him so much and part of the reason why we rate him so highly is we really, not since he was about 20, have seen many errors or poor performances. Don't get me wrong, if you go back to the COVID season, for example, his first one as our first choice keeper, there were mistakes in there. He missed the ball a couple of times. There were some dodgy passes, but really for 3 straight seasons since, there are very, very, very few errors, and he's been quite heavily involved.
I love hearing that, Nick. What's his kicking like?
I'd say on the keeper side, very strong. But obviously, there's a sort of because obviously with the goalkeeper, particularly when you ask them to pass out from the back, you go long. The longer you go, there's that range of, if you overcook it slightly, it's going to a different player. It's going out of play. So for a lot of people, they'll judge it on that. For me, I give keeper a bit more tolerance, knowing that if you're going for those long passes, it's going to be missed. So I reckon he'll play his first few games. There'll be a few that aren't quite as accurate, and people take that to be, his kicking could be better. But for me, I look and think for a goalkeeper, it's right at the top end. He's very keen to get things going quickly. Whether it's collecting and distributing, I know this is not necessarily throwing, but kicking, it's throwing, but distributing quickly and getting counterattacks. If you want to see a prime example of that, I'm thinking it might have been Shrewsbury or Ipswich in our 21-22 season. One we scored, one we nearly scored, where collects a corner, 2 seconds later it's bowled out on the halfway line, or charging forward, cutting it back, and one scoring, one nearly. But in terms of kicking, he's very adept at passing out from the back. He had a howler, actually, 1 howler in pre-season, only pre-season, so I'm not going to draw on it too much, but he had a howler in pre-season, but whether or not that really stands up to, it hasn't made any major mistakes I can recall in Championship or League One in a little while. He's very adept at passing out from the back. Good awareness, good at picking out the right option as well, in terms of, being able to make those little triangles and so forth. Genuinely, it's really sad to see him go. He's such a good goalkeeper, but he's got to be one of the best in the Championship, I think.
Wow. Oh, Sheffield Wednesday fans will tell you that's 𝗍𝗿𝗍, but we're going to believe it's Cooper. He was voted Young Player of the Season in 2020-21 by Argyle supporters. The following season, which you were just talking about, that following season, he received the EFL League One Golden Glove jointly with David Stockdale for keeping the most clean sheets. 18 clean sheets now across 46 games.
More importantly, have you seen the XG difference? That's hard to come by because it wasn't available on sort of mainstream data. My God, he must have kept out about 10 goals. The difference was huge. So the season after was different because our defending was better. The season before, there were 4, 5, 6 games where he was the difference between winning and losing, not drawing and losing or drawing and winning, but just outright winning and losing. The 21-22 season he was the last line defence, and he had an outstanding campaign. He got a Player of the Season as well, and he's in League One Team of the Season twice in a row. Beat Bazunu that season. He beat Trafford the season after. That's not to put those two down. That's to talk about where he was performing for those 2 seasons. Cooper, like I say, there's a reason we love him. He has been excellent for us for 3 straight seasons.
Has he got a nickname?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right, well, I'll work on that. Okay, so he's right-footed, he's 24, he'll be 25 in October. Now, you mentioned 2 injuries. They were 2 serious ligament injuries. Now, what's your gut feeling, Nick? Are they behind him?
Well, they were in different knees, so it wasn't a recurrence of the first one. But so you can look at it either way. You can say that's a weakness in both knees, or you can say at least he hasn't recurred. Because the biggest risk with a ligament injury, a knee ligament injury, is the recurrence, and then it's not career over, but there's a giant question mark over anywhere you go. So you can look at it in the positive light that he hasn't recurred, had a recurrence of that injury. And the second one was certainly less severe than the first. He was back in the same season, as opposed to out for 9 months. I've seen that, his performances when he came back in after the first one, excellent, albeit over a short spell. And then again, when he came back after the second one, you wouldn't notice anything wrong with it. His kicking was uninterrupted. It wasn't like his spring was reduced from dealing with crosses. There's nothing that I could see. His performance was just as good as they were. That's not to say there wasn't some underlying thing I'm unaware of. But no one's talking about it.
Good.
No one's really. The only thing we've really mentioned is purely in terms of a transfer. Is the club going to be less likely to take him because of that risk? But performance-wise, no one in the club's talking about it.
Well, for Plymouth, he played 161 times. He kept 55 clean sheets, I read on Transfermarkt. That's absolutely huge. I mean, if we just look at league games, it's 142 games played with 47 clean sheets, mostly in League One. But last season, he played 19 times. That was in the Championship, of course, and kept 6 clean sheets. In the Championship, that's not easy to do.
He also had one of the highest XG preventions. I forget what the actual, there's proper terms that I can't remember with, but essentially in terms of goals he should have conceded versus the goals he did concede. As far as I recall, he was comfortably towards the top of the Championship, and that's despite playing so few games. Usually it's, you accumulate that over, players who play an entire season, playing well over an entire season, are the ones who usually sit at the top of that. I mean, it goes to show how great his performances were when he was. I'll be blunt. I think we'd probably go down if Cooper hadn't come back, given how fine the margins were. It's not to say that there are issues. This isn't the Conor Hazard podcast, and this isn't for Argyle fans. There's a big old debate about how good Conor Hazard is. That's not to disparage Hazard. That's just to recognise that in a season of fine margins and the quality that Michael Cooper has, I think he made a tangible difference.
He's going to be playing in front of a back 4. What formations has he played in front of for Argyle?
Back 3 predominantly, but then back 4 last season and in pre-season this season. We used, since Ryan Lowe came in 2019, for 5 straight seasons, we were a back 3. We started off at 3-5-2, so 3-5-2. Just making sure my numbers are those.
They are correct.
Then our promotion season we had 3-4-3. When we came into the Championship, we went to a back 4. I think that's so we could have the extra body in midfield, because we'd strolled against some of the bigger sides in League One who had the higher quality players, and I think as a result we wanted a bit more of a presence in midfield, and that meant that change to back 4 didn't. Again, you saw nothing different in Cooper. That's partly because the team was well coached for most of that season to be able to pass out from the back, and he was a key part of that. I can't see that being remotely an issue unless there's more of an issue on your end. Obviously, you're lifting him out of a place last season anyway, where we had a very effective route for passing out from the back, and putting him into a team where I can't say I'm an expert on Sheffield United, but there could be underlying issues within your team that might expose something.
Well, possession-based seems to be the way that 𝗏𝗏𝗏 wants to go this season. I mean, he's been at Argyle, and he's only been at Argyle since a kid, 2009, professionally 2017. I'm doing this from memory, but that would mean if we're just going from professionally, he wouldn't have been due a testimonial. But if you go it from when he was a youth player, very much due a testimonial. No talk about that?
I'll be honest, when was the last Plymouth Argyle testimonial? I feel like I've been during the admin season. I don't know. I don't think so. I think also it's a bit raw for fans to be talking about it like that right now.
Well, that's actually where I was going to go with this next, Nick. I mean, we will play Plymouth this season, not next, but we will play Plymouth this season. What reception will Michael Cooper get?
I think he'll get a very good one. I think the emotions are raw right now. I think the people who there's a frustration among some fans who think that he's forced to move. I can see that a little bit. One, I'd sympathise with that because, as we sort of mentioned, players' careers are short. If they want to have a shot and if they think that they've earned that shot, and it's only the club's ethos is meant to be about player trading. We make a profit, we reinvest, and we hopefully make a follow-up profit and so forth. That's one of the ways the club intends, or at least so it says, to level the playing field. That we don't have an owner who's going to spend tons of money, but we can use the Brentford model, the Brighton model, the Peterborough model, whatever you want to call it, to make it up that way. So, based on what Rooney said, he was very clear at the start of the season that he wanted to go. That he was out of contract in a year. I don't know. I'm quite sympathetic towards him. I don't see it as a major issue, and in particular, I think it's just an opportunity to bring in 2 players for hopefully the fee that we've got for him. I think by and large, everyone will be very happy to see him and applaud him and congratulate him at the time, unless something's happened between now and then. And I think it's more likely that some of the angrier fans who are upset by this have not necessarily moved on, but calmed down a bit and just get swept up by the emotion of just applauding a successful academy prospect who's, let's not forget, made us millions. He's going to be one of our, I know it's small numbers for most clubs, it's going to be one of our most expensive ever sales.
Wow.
Depending on the sell-on and, well, we don't actually know what the fee is yet.
No, we don't know.
But hypothetically, the outright fee could be the highest fee we've ever received for a player. Or even if it's not, the sell-on and the add-ons could lift him up to that anyway. So it's a very successful piece of business when you consider it that way.
It sounds worth it. Well, we'll close there by me saying that, when I say we're not going to be playing Plymouth next season, that's not a dig at Plymouth. That's because I believe Sheffield United will get promotion. I don't believe 𝗵𝗿𝗃-𝗂𝗂𝗏, I'm sure you'd agree with me, Nick, will be in the Premier League next season. I do hope that you can stay.
There's also a risk that we're not in the Championship after Sunday, but fingers crossed. There's a long, long way to go yet.
A long way to go. I have got a lot of time for Plymouth Argyle. I went to school with a massive Argyle fan, Luke Hildyard, if you're watching. And Luke used to constantly say to me, the catchment area, when Plymouth finally get going, no club is going to have more support than Argyle. He used to always, and I used to think, he's right. He is right. But he's been saying that to me since 1992. I've been waiting.
Argument. You hear every now and then. I think it's a bit overstated. It's quite a long way to try. I mean, there's not many other professional clubs in that sort of range, but it's still quite a long way for some people to travel.
Listen, I know it's a long way to travel because when I used to live in the northeast, I went to go and watch the Blades against Plymouth a few times. I remember going one game. We drew 0-0 and 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏 missed really late on, an absolute sitter, and he put it over the bar. I was like, I've driven all this way to watch this dross. But to be fair, those were the best days of my life, and now I'm just too busy. But Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I feel really encouraged by what you've said, and I always like to get the opposition who know the player that we've brought in's opinion and their views. I respect yours, Nick, our Argyle analyst. Thank you.
I think a lot of Argyle fans will be cheering on Sheffield United for promotion. Ooh. So I'd imagine one of those add-ons is going to be on that he gets promoted. So all of a sudden we've got a financial interest in your success.
A vested interest. You're absolutely right. Nick, thank you so much.